We are inflating away the dollar. We are destroying the value of the bond market. We are wholly hypocritical in terms of the way that we view the world and make rules. They're looking to gold and commodities, as Zoltan Pozsar says, as assets that have no counterparty risk. Why would we do it? Well, how do you ever pay off that debt? And if all the debt is owed to us, as the treasuries are being sold, the American public is loading up on them. So if you did default, if you did incentivize the world to dump dollars, to move away from only accepting dollars for treasuries, then that's that bang, that all at once moment where everything collapses.
Andy Schectman, a highly respected precious metals analyst and the president of Miles Franklin Precious Metals, has issued a stark warning. He believes a significant economic storm is brewing for the United States. This is not a mere prediction, but a conclusion drawn from his relentless study of gold and silver and his deep understanding of the global economy. The world's largest economy is under serious threat from a barrage of internal and external factors. These could not only jeopardize its global standing, but also have severe implications for American investors. Unfortunately, Schectman observes that despite the clear and growing signs, many Americans seem to be under the influence of normalcy bias, a cognitive bias that leads people to underestimate the likelihood of a disaster and its potential adverse effects. U.S. Treasuries play a vital role in the global financial systems. Both institutional and retail investors consider the U.S. Treasury market the safest and most liquid in the world. Treasury yields act as the risk-free rate against which all other assets are measured. However, Treasuries have been at the center of some pretty big financial events in recent years that have brought increased volatility to a typical risk-free market. In his latest interview with Living Your Greatness, Andy discusses the increasing volatility in U.S. Treasuries and how they compare with precious metals like gold and silver. Andy points out that since gold is now a Tier 1 asset, on the same level as U.S. dollars and treasuries, institutional investors are critically examining and altering how their previous perceptions about the precious metal. As the chaos and uncertainties in the treasury market escalate, Andy suggests we could gradually see money managers and other investors incorporating more gold in their 60-40 portfolios. We will now bring you clips from the interview. Please watch, share, and like this video. Also, ensure you subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications bell, and leave your comments and observations in the comments section below. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
China and Japan and Russia and Saudi Arabia and all of these countries are shedding U.S. treasuries. Who's been buying them? In large part, it's us. The hedge funds, the money markets, the mutual funds, the people chasing yield have been buying the treasuries as central banks have been selling and buying gold and commodities. And you can look at a graph of the Chinese acquisition of gold versus their divestment of treasuries, and it's like this. And this is the rest of the world. They're selling treasuries and buying gold because not only has gold outperformed the treasury market, it has no counterparty liability. It can't be sanctioned or confiscated from a foreign nation the way that treasuries have. We've proven treasuries can if we do not align ideologically. Well, we're going to take it from you, let alone inflate it away. And so when you look at a debt burden the way that we have, my mentor, Richard Russell, God bless his soul, used to say 15, 20 years ago, the Fed, when we only had a $15 to $17 trillion debt, that the Fed was trapped and they had two choices, inflate or default, inflate or die, he always used to say. And I would say that there's a third choice, and that is to find a villain, and that is Xi Jinping and OPEC and Putin, to incentivize the world to move away from the dollar by allowing these countries to unite under the BRICS flag, by pushing OPEC away, by signing executive order to go green. And it aligns with Jared Bernstein's ideological views. You know, Jared Bernstein, I'm sure many people have seen this guy's ridiculous interview that they were showing snippets of it on Twitter, where he was trying to explain how the bond market works, how the Treasury sells bonds, how the government prints money. It was the most humiliating thing I've ever seen come out of the mouth of the lead economic advisor of the U.S. government. But if you go back and research him and title Jared Bernstein in the search bar, Dethrone King Dollar, you'll find a report that he wrote. It was picked up by the New York Times, or statements he made to the Washington Post when Trump threw tariffs on China, asking or saying, good, maybe we'll lose the reserve status. His whole thesis is to lose the reserve status. It's a privilege we can no longer afford. So you have an executive order to go green when the linchpin of the dollar hegemony is our relationship with OPEC and Saudi Arabia, for them to for protection, they will value oil in dollars and recycle the excess in treasuries. Well, they are no longer selling oil just in dollars. You see these mutual deals or these where example, Saudi Arabia sells oil to China for yuan and it is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. So, gold is now replacing the treasury bond, in my opinion, because it has no counterparty risk and has massively outperformed the bond market in the last since beginning of the century. And the settlement outside of dollars chips away at the dollar hegemony, and the excess reserves not going into treasuries, in fact, being sold, going into gold, chips away at the reserve status. But why do it is a good question. Well, like I said, 200 trillion in debt. How do you ever pay it off? Well, you inflate, you default, or you find a villain. Those bastards did it to us. They dumped the dollar. How could they do it? And how many people know that gold is tier one? How many people know that Saudi Arabia signed a protection agreement with Russia, or that they've applied to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or joined the BRICS, or all of these things? How many people know it? Nobody. How many people know that it's the backing of the Saudi kingdom that gives the dollar its reserve status? Hardly anybody. The media doesn't just do a bad job, they do no job of telling us what's coming. So for them to point to this as a villainous act would work. And at the same time, who's all the debt owed to? Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, government, military pensions. That's us. How about all the treasuries? Who's been selling them? Them. Japan, China, Saudi Arabia, Russia, all of the countries are shedding treasuries, because not only has the treasury market been horribly performing over the last year and a half as they raised rates 500 basis points in a very quick period of time after a decade-long plus of zero-bound federal funds rate, destroying the value of all those bonds in circulation that they hold, the 10-year treasury, but they can be confiscated now.
According to Andy, the political class has made a huge mess of the US economy and the general state of affairs in the country to, among other things, intentionally undermine the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency and hasten the transition to centrally controlled digital currencies. During the interview, Andy issued several dire warnings about the general state of affairs, highlighting serious patterns that many Americans seem to be blissfully ignoring. He warns that the ultimate collapse is much closer than we can imagine, and only an immediate transition to a gold standard will save our economy and country. Andy believes the increasing divide along racial, political, gender, and social lines in the United States is a part of the massive plan to bring about a reset and enforce the acceptance of a central bank digital currency, CBDC. This is despite the many criticisms and reservations against a digital currency that can easily be manipulated. It's going to be a game of divide and conquer, and they have successfully achieved the first part of their goal already. When this reset hits, Andy is certain that the fallout is going to affect us all, but it will affect some more than others. According to the renowned metals analyst, those who will be most affected are those who place all their wealth and sustenance in the system.
We are inflating away the dollar. We are destroying the value of the bond market. We are wholly hypocritical in terms of the way that we view the world and make rules. They're looking to gold and commodities, as Zoltan Pozsar says, as assets that have no counterparty risk, instead of debt, opaque debt promises, which have a very small historical footprint in terms of being an asset from a country that can steal it from you. And so why would we do it? Well, how do you ever pay off that debt? And if all the debt is owed to us, as the treasuries are being sold, the American public is loading up on them, the hedge funds, the money markets, the mutual funds, the traders, the people chasing yield. The majority of all the debt is owed to us, including most of the treasury debt, maybe 20, 25% owed to the rest of the world. So if you did default, if you did incentivize the world to dump dollars, to move away from only accepting dollars for treasuries, then that's that bang, that all at once moment where everything collapses, as every country in the world's had to stockpile dollars for 50 years. And that synthetic demand, by the way, has created huge demand for the dollar that if no one has to hold it, let alone wants to dump them, the inflationary impact is extraordinary as all those dollars rush home. The byproduct is increased interest rates, which everything in this world, from the banks to the insurance companies to all the assets, are inversely correlated to that. That's the Klaus Schwab moment when everyone dumps dollars, rates spike, and everything collapses, including the banks and the insurance companies. That's when the CBD comes into effect, and that's the number 2 economic advisor, Lael Brainerd, who has worked at the Fed, worked at the Treasury. If Biden were to win again, she will be the head of the Federal Reserve. She worked with the Boston Fed and MIT in development of a new CBDC that Biden fast-tracked. She fast-tracked and ran point for Fed Now, which is Venmo and Zelle on steroids backed by the Fed. That's being test piloted by a handful of banks. She's a modern monetary theorist. But the point is this, is that now you can blame someone. You can blame Xi Jinping and Putin and OPEC for dumping the dollar, for creating the hyperinflation, for destroying the system, but have no fear because the Lael Brainerd is here with their CBDC. Take it, and we too will make you whole as everything that you own is collapsed. Now is it hyperbole? Yeah, everything I said up until that moment is fact, but what happens if and when that happens? Well, that's a scary thing. I don't know that it will happen, but it sure seems like it is happening. And it's a whole hell of a lot easier to default on the American public than it is on the rest of the world, because all you got to do is take the CBDC and whatever you had will make you whole. And I know you had 5 million in your bank, but it's gone. And so is your bank. Take the CBDC, and we'll even give you your insurance policies that are lost because the insurance companies blew up. And could that happen? I don't know. You tell me. The whole concept of modern monetary theory is to print. You print your way to prosperity. So, why not? Why not make it happen that way? How else can you describe when you say, why would it be too stupid? I mean, look at the things we have done. Not only have we destabilized our image around the world, we're telling the linchpin of the dollar hegemony, we're going green, even though it's called the petrodollar. We're weaponizing the dollar against all of these members of BRICS who are united together in a common union. And then we let our country fall apart, from the borders to the elections, to the inner cities, to the judicial system, to the nuclear family, to everything. It's like, where the hell are we? It's a bizarro world. And so it is, to me, too stupid to not be planned, because you inflate, you default, both roads lead to the same place, or you find a villain. And that villain allows you to move to the next system without falling on the sword for incredibly naive and irresponsible monetary policy and brain-dead fiscal policy. And instead, you have that villain to point to. And you know what? The American public largely would believe it and bite it and take it. And gladly accept the CBDC rather than starving to death.
Centrally controlled digital currencies, in whatever form they are presented, whether controlled by central banks or big commercial banks like JP Morgan Chase, pose many dangers, particularly regarding privacy and censorship. A digital currency that can be easily monitored is undoubtedly one of the phases that will precede the "you'll own nothing and be happy" era. If we give up our financial freedom by giving into CBDCs, what will they come for next? The clothes on our backs? Our freedoms? Do you agree with Andy that this is all part of a big plan to effortlessly bring about a reset and enforce further control over Americans and our resources? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos. Thanks for watching.